Alright, so this is a Hyundai Accent 2017. I rented this today. I'm going to kind of give you a look inside, talk about it a little bit, and then I'll give you my overall opinion of it once we get back. So I'm going on vacation really quick, a couple days. One thing I did like, this thing has a huge trunk. How big this trunk is. It's a ridiculous amount of space in there. So other than that, one of the things I don't like is how the back window is. Other than that, it's got a fair amount of space inside. Now this car didn't get great safety rating, but it's got a lot of room. One thing I like too is the actual seats have like really good lumbar support, so it actually does feel good. And you got this little freaking armrest, which is pretty interesting. It's a place for cups, you know, standard stuff. This is an automatic. It's got your basic stuff down here. Is an auxiliary port. There's USB. You know, another thing, this thing didn't get really great ratings because there are not a lot of options. But as I always say with vehicles, I always buy cars that don't have a lot of electrical junk in them, like the whole backup camera thing. That's just more crap to break. So that's stuff like you can add in. The bad thing with the newer cars is they basically tie that stuff into the wiring harness, which makes if it dies, you get check engine lights, you get all kind of craziness that is basically unnecessary. Like if you could buy something aftermarket, have it put in, if something happens to it, stops working, you just replace it. You don't have to worry about it. So I like the fact that this is like fairly simple. There's not a whole lot of stuff. It doesn't have heated seats or anything like that. It's like just straight bare bones car. There's like not a whole lot to it. It will get up and go. It's got 137 horsepower, which is not bad. Like I said, it has a poor safety rating, but that's not bad. Another thing you can tell, like where I live, the road is kind of rough. It's a rough pavement, and you can really hear the pavement inside the car when you're driving. Other than that, it's got really cool dash. I like this kind of this carbon fiber kind of look. I think that's really cool. So I like the dash a lot. Other than that, there's not a lot to it. I will let you know kind of my overall opinion whenever we get back. So another kind of really weird thing is like the back window is so freaking small. You have to really rely on your mirrors to see behind you. So that's about it. Other than that, like kind of it's a really good little vehicle. So I'll let you know what I think about it when we get back. Here's what I say about the vehicle. The vehicle is very roomy. There is plenty of space as far as front seats. There's a lot of room. So it is a very roomy vehicle. Has a pretty good amount of pickup, so it can zoom around town really quick. It's got a good little horsepower package in there. Now, this car had pretty low mileage for a rent-a-car, which is pretty interesting, being that it's a year old. Second day we had it, I cranked it up to go to the store. We were just kind of like driving around, just having little adventures, and I noticed that the tach was bouncing a little bit, and the idle was kind of a little lumpy. And I hadn't put gas in it. I basically drove it down to about half tank, and then on the way home we drove it down pretty much almost empty and then filled it back up. But so this is the second day. Low mileage vehicle, only a year old, lumpy idle is not a good thing. So I don't know if this is like something with all of those vehicles, but this particular car was doing that, and I was like really surprised, because usually that's a sensor, like a map sensor can cause that, or a bad plug. There's a lot of things that could cause that would be simple, but it's just really surprising to me that they aren't taking as good care of their vehicles as they should, maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't think that a car that is only a year old should be having those issues, though, which is pretty interesting. Um, Other than that, the suspension on this thing is like the equivalent of like a 98 Honda Civic with low profile tires, which is another thing that I thought was very weird because like with low profile tires, when you hit a bump, um, the bumps kind of really resonate through the car. It's just a thing when you don't have that space between the rim and the tire. When you hit bumps, it just kind of resonates through the car. Um, this car does not have low profile tires; it was standard tires, and it was doing the same thing, the same kind of feel. And I was like, that's pretty interesting that a car would do that that has that much like tire. Hondas don't do that whenever you have regular sized tires on them. I mean, they're actually a pretty good ride whenever you don't have low profiles on them. And when you put those low profiles, and especially when you get up to a size that I like, which is like 17s, the ride is a little bit bumpier. So the suspension is kind of like not really where it needs to be on these vehicles, or at least this one. Um, Another thing is like you can definitely hear the road inside the car when you're driving. It's got a really annoying kind of like when you're riding on like rough pavement. I'm like, this is annoying. But as long as you turn up the radio, you know, get the radio going, you're good to go. Now, out of a 1 to 10, what would I give the car? I'd probably give the car a 5 because it was a newer vehicle, but I really wasn't impressed with the car overall, um, which is pretty interesting. I'm not a real big fan of Hyundais. We've actually rented another one that I didn't like either, and that one was a lot worse. At least the seats in this car um, were really nice. The seats were really comfortable, and the other one, which is I don't even know what kind of car that was. It was a Hyundai though. It was one of the other sports kind of editions, and the seats were like sitting on freaking like egg crates or something. It was freaking horrible. But yeah, so this was not that bad. Give it a 5 out of 10. Would I ever buy one? No. um, for the money you would pay for something like that, um, I don't know. I'd buy something else. But that's just me. My review. This is what I think of the car. Other than that, the car was like fairly decent. It's a decent little car. Gets around. So you guys take it easy. Peace.